You know, right now, as you're sitting there, millions, no, billions of your cells are performing this incredible high-stakes dance. It's how you grow, how you heal, how you literally replace yourself. We call this process mitosis. And here's the thing, even though it's so fundamental to life, it can be really, really tricky to get a handle on. So today, we're going to break it down.
And that's such a great question, right? Mitosis is literally what keeps us going. And yet for so many of us, learning about it in school felt like trying to memorize this super complex, kind of alien dance with a ton of strange new words. So why? Why does this absolutely essential process trip so many people up?
Well, if you've ever felt confused by this stuff, I've got good news. You are in excellent company. I mean, check this out. A study found that 46% of biology student teachers, yeah, the people who are literally training to teach this subject, have major misconceptions about mitosis. And that number's even higher for meiosis, a related process. It just goes to show you how common the confusion is. So let's clear it all up.
Okay, so these are some of the biggest culprits, the most common myths. The idea that a cell is just resting during interphase, when really it's working its tail off copying all its DNA, or, getting mixed up about when DNA replication actually happens, or thinking the chromosome number gets cut in half. That's a whole different process. And this last one's a big one, that a chromosome always looks like an X. These are the details that get all tangled up, and today, we're going to untangle every single one.
All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start by seeing where mitosis fits into the bigger picture of a cell's life. Then, we'll dive right into the main event, the Great Division, and go step by step. After that, we'll take a peek under the hood at the amazing machine that makes it all happen. And finally, we'll connect it all back to why this stuff really, really matters for our health.
Okay, first things first. Mitosis doesn't just happen out of nowhere. It's not a standalone show. It's actually the grand finale of a much longer story, what we call the cell cycle. And honestly, understanding all the prep work is the key to really getting what happens during the division itself.
So this diagram here, it basically shows the cell's entire life story. If you followed those arrows, you can see the cell spends most of its time right here, in this big section called interphase. That's where it's growing, that's the G1 phase, then it's copying all its DNA in the S phase, and then doing a final prep in G2. Mitosis itself, that little slice of the pie we call the M phase, that's actually the short, super action-packed finale.
And right here, this is our first major myth bust. Interphase is anything but a resting phase. Seriously, it's probably the cell's busiest time. During that first part, G1, it just grows. Then, in the S phase, and S is easy to remember, it stands for synthesis. It meticulously, carefully copies all 46 of its chromosomes. And then in G2, it basically double-checks everything, like proofreading an important paper before turning it in. It's all prep.
Okay, let's lock in a couple of key terms here, because they're super important. A chromosome is just a tightly coiled up package of DNA. Now, after that S phase we just talked about, when the DNA gets copied, what we usually picture as that classic X-shaped chromosome is actually made of two identical copies. We call them sister chromatids, and they're kind of pinched together right in the middle at a spot called the centromere.
All right, so the stage is set. The DNA is perfectly copied. The cell has given itself the green light. It is time for the main event, the Great Division.
So this whole incredible dance is broken down into four main acts: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. And if you have trouble remembering the order, just think P-M-A-T. Easy enough, right? Let's take them one by one.
Okay, everything kicks off with prophase. This is where the DNA, which is usually kind of loose and stringy, starts to coil up super tightly into those classic X-shaped chromosomes that you can actually see under a microscope. At the very same time, the membrane that surrounds the nucleus just dissolves, basically setting the chromosomes free to move around. Next up is metaphase, and this one's easy to remember. M for middle. The chromosomes are all perfectly choreographed to line up in a perfect single-file line right down the center of the cell. We call this the equator. And believe me, this perfect alignment is absolutely crucial for what's about to happen next. And now for the main action sequence, anaphase. You can remember A for away or apart. This is the moment of separation. Those sister chromatids are finally pulled apart. One single chromatid from each X gets tugged toward one side of the cell, while its identical twin gets pulled to the exact opposite side. And this right here, this is the whole point. This careful separation is the entire reason this whole process is so organized.
This step guarantees, it absolutely ensures that when the cell finally splits into two, both new cells will have a complete, perfect, and totally identical set of genetic instructions. No mistakes allowed.
We've finally reached telophase, the final act. Just think T for 2, because the cell is now basically building 2 new command centers. As the 2 complete sets of chromosomes arrive at opposite ends of the cell, brand new nuclear membranes start to form around each group, and the chromosomes themselves start to uncoil and relax.
This leads us to the grand finale, the final pinch, cytokinesis. Now, technically, this is a separate process, but it usually overlaps with the end of telophase. This is the actual physical splitting of the rest of the cell. The membrane just pinches inward and inward until, poof, one cell becomes 2 separate, identical daughter cells. Job done.
Okay, so we've seen the chromosomes do all this amazing moving around, but we haven't talked about what's actually doing the moving. How does this all work? Well, that would be an absolutely incredible piece of cellular machinery called the spindle apparatus.
The best way to think of the spindle is like the cell's own little construction crew, using a system of scaffolding and ropes to get the job done. The ropes are these tiny little tubes called microtubules. They literally build themselves. They grab onto a specific spot on each chromosome, a spot we call the kinetochore, and then they do all the heavy lifting of lining up the chromosomes and pulling them apart. It's amazing. And what's so cool is that scientists are still figuring out the exact details of how this amazing machine gets built. There are 2 main ideas. Is it a search and capture mission, where the microtubules grow out from the poles and kind of fish for the chromosomes? Or does it self-assemble, building itself around the chromosomes first and then getting organized? It's a fantastic reminder that biology is not a closed book. We're still solving these mysteries right now. So, we've just walked through this mind-bogglingly complex process that's happening on a microscopic scale. But why? Why does getting this tiny, intricate dance exactly right matter so much to us on a big picture scale? Well, at its best, mitosis is, it's life. It's how a single fertilized egg grows into a person. It's how your skin heals after you get a cut. And it's how your body is constantly, right now, replacing old, worn-out cells with fresh, new ones. It is the fundamental process of renewal and growth. But the flip side is that the stakes are incredibly high. A single mistake, just one chromosome failing to separate correctly, can be a disaster. These kinds of errors can permanently change the DNA in the new cells, and that can be a pathway to all sorts of genetic conditions. And this leads us to one of the most critical connections of all. The cell cycle has these built-in safety checkpoints, right? They're there to make sure everything is perfect before the cell divides. But when those checkpoints fail and a cell with errors starts dividing anyway, that process can spiral out of control. And that rapid, unchecked growth, that's what we know as cancer.
So you see, mitosis is so much more than just a chapter in a biology textbook. It's this constant, incredibly high-stakes performance that our very existence depends on. And it really leaves you with a final thought, doesn't it? If this one tiny, intricate dance happening inside a single cell can determine so much about our health, what other microscopic processes are out there quietly shaping our entire world?